Hi there, my name is Jesse Pohlman. I'm a science fiction and fantasy author from Long Island, New York, and this is Untitled Welcome Advice, where myself and my wonderful cat, Ariel the office cat, will go through some questions submitted by friends, family, strangers, whoever, and answer them. And speaking of, leave a comment down below, and I will do my best to answer your question as soon as I get it. Today's question is coming from an old Q&A I did back in 2021 from my dear friend who's one of my longtime favoriteest readers. She's been around for 20 years, Ashlynn Spiro. I've taken her question, which she gave me 4 years ago, and I've reframed it as, how do you get through the harder parts of writing a novel? There's much more to the question than that, including stuff about my favorite parts of writing a novel. So let's talk about that for a minute, because that's the easy way, and it's sort of a lead-in to this question of how do you get through the harder parts. So one of the first steps to getting through the hard parts is to know what your easy parts are. For example, planning. Planning is fun. I love sitting down with charts and things like of that nature and just writing them down. I've done that sort of thing before. It's quite enjoyable. I have at any one time in my immediate presence good old Clippy the clipboard. And Clippy the clipboard has on it right now, has on it some stuff for my tabletop role-playing game, Pen and Magica. I know you can't really read this too well, but it's got stuff about magic, magic forms, magic summons, stuff like that. So Clippy the clipboard has stuff that I'm always just kind of writing little notes down on and planning stuff out. The next thing I like really a lot is playing with the words on the page. You know, I'm not a pantser. I don't really necessarily believe in the plotter-pantser debate, but I would say I'm more of a plotter than a pantser by far. I think you pants when you plot, and you plot when you pants. So when you're outlining, you're coming up with stuff off the top of your head, which is what pantsing is supposed to be, but you're forming it into a thing that you can later go back to and make stuff up. Pants your writing, pants your scene connections. Even if you do connect the dot style, where you have a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, and it forms a coherent shape and symbol, you're still plotting to pants and pantsing to plot. So I love playing with the words. I love getting alliteration involved. That's one of my favorite literary devices. I am a predictable sort. And then, of course, I love positive feedback. I love when I have friends that I can share my work with and be like, hey, does this look good? So with that said, let's talk about some of the stuff I don't like so much. So, some of the hardest parts for me. First and foremost, right? I am a self-published author. That means I am my own publisher. That means I have to do all the publication work. So first of all, as most authors do, I have to face myself for revisions. I have to look myself in the eye and go, Jesse, how did you do with this story? Where did you mess up? What did you get wrong? Go through it and revise it and fix it and make it better. And I found that I have certain things that I do because I recently started working with an editor. His name's John Adamus. I'll put his link in the description. He does free 30-minute sessions. You can just sit down and talk with him and see how you feel. That's how I got into being a client of his. That in his podcast and his video stuff. He's on YouTube too. I'll link that too. Coordinating with others is the thing that's hard for me. John and I get along really well. He's a fantastic editor, and we have a similar vibe. So we work really well. And I didn't meet him as somebody going into looking for an editor. I just met him as someone looking for writing advice and feedback, and that's how it became an editorial relationship. You have to find someone that you work with because you remember, I've said this in previous videos, you revise your own work. You get edits from someone else because you're too close to your own work. The closest I can think of to doing actual edits on your own work is if you write something and wait like 5 years. So you are basically a different person almost on a cellular level. And then you can look at your own work and go, I'm going to edit this because it's someone else's work. It's just my work. And you're going to feel really weird about it because you're going to go, oh, I made that mistake. Oh, I made this mistake. I'm doing that sort of thing right now. But coordinating with others is where it gets really hard because you also have to coordinate with cover artists. And for some things, you may have to coordinate with building on a website and updating a website. And I've been trying to do that sort of thing. So those are the things that are hard for me. I'm not saying they're my least favorite parts, but they're hard for me. I'm really bad with, like, anytime I need to give someone else my approval of my things, I'm very friendly and very flexible. I'm very much willing to give people like, oh, that's great. And I don't want to trouble you. You did something. something is better than nothing, I'm good to go. And it's like, no, Jess, you need to actually go look this over with a fine-tooth comb and be like, how are we going to implement all of this stuff, you know? For my recent novel, Physics Trincarnate, I hired Cecilia Ivy Price, link in the description. And Cecilia is a good friend of mine. We go way back. Again, a situation where I wasn't looking for a cover artist, but she's an artist, so I got a cover from her. And I got cover artists, and I got art inside of the book. I got a character picture for each chapter. So each chapter, you got somebody's picture. And that was really cool because, you know, I didn't have a lot of chapters for that book, but I had to go through and I had to figure out how to fit them on the page and the e-reader and distribute them and all of those things that really I probably could have hired a layout person for, but then that would have been more money. And when you're self-publishing, you're putting this money up front. People have to get paid. You know, you don't go, oh, I'll give you 15% of the proceeds of a book, because if you get $5 in sales, that ain't going to cut it. That doesn't cover somebody's expenses. You have to pay them. So it's very difficult to go through and afford the work you need. And it's the same with editing. You know, you can get a good rate from certain editors, like John, but you have to pay to get work done. And, you know, that's not the easiest thing in the world sometimes. So anyway, that's something that's hard for me. The truth of the matter is, though, whether it's your favorite part or your least favorite part, art is art. You're creating something that didn't previously exist. The better you do, the better you do, but just creating it is sometimes the hardest part. There are situations where you're sitting there and you're like, I know how these two plot points connect, but I need something in between them, and I don't know what that is. I need some kind of conversation to happen in some kind of place, but I don't want it to be the same conversation we just had, and I don't want it to be the next conversation we're going to have. The characters don't have enough information to have anything to converse about, so what do they talk about? And that's maybe your opportunity to world build. If you have nothing else to talk about, you can talk about a sports team. You can talk about a musician. You can talk about an artist or an author within the world that you're describing. So there's always a trick out, and that's what I mean when I say one of my favorite things is to play with the words on the page, because you can really make your own story yours by playing around with what you've got and seeing what you can fix. Anyway, I think I've gone on long enough. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, the number one thing you can do is subscribe. We just hit 25, which is like one of my favorite numbers, so that's pretty cool. Let's hit 26. Leave a comment. It helps the algorithm, but more importantly, it will, you know, let me have something else to answer. I will answer these when I have questions. Otherwise, I'll go back to old Q&As and old other stuff and topics from, like, you know, panels I've done in the past. I'm happy to do that. It's just I want to answer your question because you deserve to get an answer to your question. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'm on YouTube as Jesse Pohlman, Blue Sky is J Pohlman Writing, and my website is, of course, jpohlmanwriting.com. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and as always on this channel, pieces.